Hey, this is Marcus Stewart, and welcome to Marcus Talks About Games, episode 18, back from E3 2019. And what a show it was. Thank you for listening, guys. I am back home in sunny Florida after spending about a week almost in California for my fourth E3, and perhaps ultimately maybe one of the more, we'll say, underwhelming E3s to a degree. And I'll get into why, because this whole episode will be my impressions as well as just going through my trip, A lot of cool stuff happened this week, just from the traveling and the convention itself, watching the press conferences. I'll be getting to all that, my thoughts on what was shown, the games that were announced, any game delays, good, bad, in between. That's all this episode will be focusing on, so it'll probably be a jumbo-sized episode, much like the E3 preview episode last week. If you didn't listen to it, it's still fun to go back and listen to that, if nothing else, just to see if my predictions lined up with the reality of E3. So yeah, pull up a chair, get yourself a nice beverage, an iced tea, a coffee perhaps, not because I'm going to put you to sleep, hopefully, just because coffee's awesome, makes you feel good, nice and hot. So let's get right down to it. So, E3 2019, I flew out Saturday, the weekend before the convention started, which is, always that Tuesday. It runs till Thursday. I don't remember the exact date, but I flew out the Saturday, which was actually nice because I had a nice afternoon flight for the first time in a long time. It was like at 12 or something. And so I could wake up at a normal time and not have to rush to the airport. I could just take my time. I wasn't tired in the airport. I didn't have to grab a coffee, which is always a double-edged sword when you grab a coffee in the airport because it wakes you up, but then it makes you have to pee. And then you can't pee immediately when you get on the plane. You have to wait at least like 30 minutes until they get to the height where it's safe to walk around in the plane and relieve yourself. So this time I did not have to worry about that. I watched 2 movies on the plane, 2 movies I haven't seen yet. I saw Aquaman, which I'd been wanting to see, and I enjoyed quite a bit. I kept hearing it was good, and I did like it. 2.5 hours, maybe pushing it, but I was like, man, this movie's good. It's nice to have a DC film that doesn't make me want to tear my hair out, other than Wonder Woman. So now I have 2 of the DCEU films that I like, Wonder Woman and Aquaman. So that was good. And I also watched Isle of Dogs, the Wes Anderson film from last year that I've been wanting to see, and I enjoyed as well. A very Wes Anderson-ass Wes Anderson movie. So if you're a fan of his work, especially if you liked Fantastic Mr. Fox, I recommend it. Both of those movies, go watch them. Oh yeah, and it reminds me, the only not smooth thing that happened during this flight was that as soon as I got to the airport, I'm flying Delta, I'm waiting in line to check my bag in. And it's a long line, as you would imagine, to anyone that's ever flown before. And this old lady comes in, and she sees the line, and she comes up to me, I guess because I'm the most knowledgeable-looking person in line, and she asks me if this is the line to print your boarding pass. And I tell her no, this is the baggage check line, and that there are kiosks independent of this line over by the wall. You probably know the little computer kiosk where you can reprint your boarding pass and check your itinerary, I should say. And, there was nobody around those. So I was like, no, you can just use those. Like, nobody's in line for those. And she's like, oh, thank you. And as soon as she leaves, someone on Delta gets on their little microphone thing and says, like, hey, if you don't have your boarding pass and you're waiting in line to check your bag, you should have your boarding pass. So, like, go do that if you don't have it. And to my surprise, it seemed like half of the people behind me, like from the line behind me on, didn't have their boarding pass. And they all start rushing the kiosk that I pointed this lady to. And that's surprising because it's like, why would you not have your boarding pass and think that you could get in the line to check your bag? Like, why wouldn't you have that ready? I don't understand how so many people would not be prepared. So this line rushes the kiosk, and I don't look at any of this, but I'm assuming from what I heard, the lady who I sent over there, she went from, being able to just walk up to one to suddenly now having to deal with all these people. And I guess she misinterprets this as, like, the line, like there was a line here, and that the line that was for the baggage claim is now the line for the kiosk check or something. Like they're one and the same somehow. And I guess she was trying to get to one and maybe trying to like quote unquote cut someone, even though she wasn't really cutting. She was just already there and people just jumped in front of her. But I guess no one's letting her do it. And all I hear is behind me is her going, but the man said, this was the line that I could just use it. But that man said, and she's clearly talking about me. I don't look at her because I hear this and I'm like, is this lady like throwing me under the bus right now, saying that I was somehow wrong and like screw this up for her? Because she sounded very upset and she just kept claiming that she should be able to use this line because she's like, there was no line before. I thought that this wasn't. The guy said that this was I could just use this, that there were two separate lines. And she's saying this over and over. Like all I hear every few seconds is, but the man said. And I'm like, oh my God. And this Australian woman in front of me, I think she's the only one that maybe realizes she's talking about me. So she turns around and gives me this big, like, knowing smile. And I just kind of shake my head and just like, I'm trying like to move forward as quickly as possible just to get this over with. Because I just kept tired of hearing the lady go like, but the man said that I could use it. And I was like, oh God. So that was the one little hiccup in my flight, but everything else was good. And yeah, so I land in LA, get to the hotel, LA hotel downtown, just where we always stay. I was actually there on behalf of Extra Life, which I have been for the last few years now, meeting up with the host of the Best Games Period, Jack Gardner and Naomi Lugo. Of course, Jack, she is the senior editor at Extra Life. And our other partner was one Zach Wojnar of Screen Rant, and also, I guess, my compatriot at Screen Rant, because I also write for them. It was the four of us tackling E3 this year on behalf of Extra Life, so I met up with them at the old LA hotel downtown, or HQ, if you will. And the first thing that was going on that Saturday was the EA Play stream, which none of us really caught because we were all pretty much in transit as it was going on. And of course, this year, EA decided to not do a press conference. Instead, they just live streamed everything for like 2 days, maybe 3 days. I think it was just that weekend. And they just decided to sprinkle in announcements throughout that stream, which is very annoying if you're trying to cover EA, because that means you have to have that stream on the entire day and just kind of wait for something of note to happen. The only thing I saw from it, and I didn't even see all of it, was I caught the Star Wars gameplay reveal. I didn't see like the presentation for it, so like in terms of like maybe Respawn getting up there and actually like setting up what the game was and talking about it, I missed all of that. Like I only saw like half of the gameplay trailer because I was actually watched it in my Lyft as I was riding in a car, and I had to watch it with the sound off because I didn't want to disturb the driver. So because I'm a nice person, and yeah, just from my kind of limited impressions, it looked good. It looked like what I expected from it in terms of like, yep, this is a third-person Star Wars game. Had kind of like an Uncharted, Force Unleashed kind of vibe to it. Very pretty. Forrest Whitaker's character from Rogue One is in it. Pretty cool. And yeah, I was like, you know what? I'm ready for another one of these. I want a like Force Unleashed 2. I want to say was the last single-player Star Wars game, which was like almost a decade ago. Was that like 2010, 2011, something like that? So yeah, I was like, okay, this looks cool, I guess, about what I expected. Not surprising. I've heard after the fact that the game is bigger than it seems. Like apparently you can travel to different planets and like find new areas and explore all these areas of different planets. So that's cool. It's not a totally linear game. Not that I don't like linear games. Like I think linear games are great if they're done right. Like I love like Uncharted and stuff like that. So I wasn't opposed to it being like a more linear experience, but it's cool to see that you can, you know, do the Star Wars things of like, I'm going to go planet hopping. So that's pretty cool. I didn't catch any of the Apex stuff. I did catch a clip of the Greg Miller interview with one of the Anthem producers or designers, whatever his job is, and how awkward that looked with them asking like, so what's going on with Anthem? Is that still on fire, basically? And the guy kind of doing his best to talk about the game, and then like everyone, like all the fans surrounding him in the audience just kind of looking like, Like I think that's become a bit of a meme now, especially the part where he's like, "Listen, we've been listening to player feedback," and then the looks of the people around him just kind of like, really. So that was a fun and cringeworthy watch there. But other than that, I didn't really catch much EA stuff. So, and then the weekend we spent doing the press conferences. Just quickly because there's so many. Microsoft, pretty action packed conference. We got that Cyberpunk release date, which shocked me. I did not expect a hard release date for that. And then, damn, Keanu Reeves showing up out of his little smoke machine. He's like Edge from WWE with his entrance. And this was cool and then slightly frustrating because or at least the last few years, I've been fortunate enough to be invited to the Xbox E3 briefings, which I've attended. And then for whatever reason this year, I did not get my normal invite. And I tried to register on their little press side again because I was like, oh, usually I get one. And just no luck. Which actually didn't bother me that much. I was like, you know what? Maybe it'll be nice to kind of watch these from like the hotel and not have to worry about going out there and like waiting in line and finding a seat and then getting back. Like it'll be nice to maybe just chill out in the room and just watch this for the first time in a few years. And then of course the one year I don't go is when Keanu Reeves wants to show up, and I'm like, I literally sat there watching that going like, are you kidding me? Like I think I screamed it out loud, like, are you kidding me? And not because he was there, just because like I could have been breathing the same air as John Wick, and I was denied it for reasons unknown. What the heck? But anyways, it was a fun appearance. He seemed genuinely enthusiastic about Cyberpunk, as evidenced by his Cyberpunk yell, his war cry. And he got, he's going to be a character in the game, which felt like a very Hideo Kojima move to me, just getting a celebrity and kind of putting him in there with his likeness and everything. But yeah, cool. And then Cyberpunk's coming April, God, I forgot the day. Was it like 15 or something? I don't know. It's April something. But wow, like who would have thought that would get a hard release date that soon? But pretty cool. So, the other things that stood out to me, conference of Ori and the Blind Forest, Ori and the Will of the Wisp getting delayed to February of next year. That was a letdown. I was hoping that would be this year. That game seems like it could release tomorrow, really. But hey, whatever makes it better. Of course, we got the Project Scarlet stuff, which I was pretty underwhelmed by, just because like it didn't really. It wasn't as much as I felt like they could have shown, and I get that it's not launching till next holiday, but in a year where they had E3 more or less to themselves, actually pretty much to themselves, because like obviously Sony wasn't there this year, and Nintendo is very much in its own like bubble. Like they're not part of the traditional cycle anymore because of how they've released their console. So like they're not releasing a Switch successor anytime soon. It's pretty much just Microsoft and Sony in this race. So the year that Microsoft could have gone on, but like here is everything you need to know about the Xbox super duper I don't know, green X edition thing. What it did was confirm the code name Project Scarlet, which has been a bit of an open secret at this point. And then just have the little video that you see every console reveal with like the developer sitting in front of a camera and being like, oh yeah, like this microchip is just gonna like, before we couldn't render this, but with this new power, we could render God. Like the face of God is possible with this new hardware. We're very excited about the possibilities of the Project Scarlet. Like we just got that video. No name, no look at the box, no price, of course, which I'm not expecting that, but like I expected more than what we got. And that coupled with the Halo Infinite, I guess like official reveal or like double reveal, I was underwhelmed by that because we got the cinematic trailer for that game, which cinematic trailers have become less and less effective over the years, with a few exceptions. But like, it's like, okay, I really want to see the game, especially since for the last year, it felt like not Respawn, but 343 has been talking about how Halo Infinite, it's going to be very different from previous Halo games, that they're kind of expanding on it. It's not just going to be a by the numbers Halo game. So I want to see what that meant, like what that was, and for them to do kind of a really Halo thing anyway, of like, hey, here's a cinematic trailer, and look, we're waking up with Master Chief in space, asleep. Like, how many times has Master Chief been asleep? Like, he's like a Kingdom Hearts character, basically. He's like Sora. Like, every game opens with him, like, waking up from something. So I was underwhelmed by that too. It is cool that that's launching the same day as the console. Kind of a nice throwback to the original Xbox launch. So at least we know like there's some incentive. Like, well, at least Project Scarlet, I'm gonna get the new Halo. But yeah, I felt that could have been more. The Xbox Game Pass stuff, Game Pass for PC is a thing, and then they launched that Xbox Ultimate thing, like the subscription tier that has Gold Game Pass for console and PC. That's really cool, and I signed up for that pretty much as soon as they announced it because I was already paying monthly for Gold, and I am subscribed to Gamecast, so I was like, hey, save $5, give me all that stuff, plus the PC one if I ever decide to use it. So that was pretty cool. They talked about Project X Cloud, which is pretty much their answer to Google Stadia in terms of it being like an all streaming game thing. I actually got to try out Project X Cloud at Microsoft's booth, which I'll get into a bit later. But yeah, I liked it a lot. They had like a bunch of phones set up with like Xbox controllers plugged into them and then different games running on them. All the phones were different. Like I think there were some Samsung Galaxies and one was like a Razer or whatever. But I played Resident Evil 7 and Gears of War 4 through Project X Cloud, and it worked really well. It was cool to see those games pretty much being those games on like a phone. I was actually impressed with it, especially with Gears, which is a faster paced game. I also watched someone play Forza kind of over their shoulder, and that seemed to be, at least in terms of looking at it, seemed to perform really smoothly too. So there's definitely something there. I will say that. I walked away feeling pretty impressed by it. Battletoads is cool. Why not? Gears 5 looks good. Gears Pop, not so much, but whatever. Yeah, Microsoft, I'd say overall, like, outside of the new console stuff, I think they had a really strong showing. Who else we had? We had Bethesda later on. Bethesda I was kind of about, which I didn't surprise me because like the only thing that they're launching this year that we knew of was like Doom and Wolfenstein, so they went pretty hard on those as they should have. Both of those games look awesome, and both of those games were on the show floor, playable. I did not play either of them, but I watched both of them being played, and they looked great. That Tango Gameworks game, Ghostwire Tokyo, that looks really cool. I like Tango. I enjoyed those Evil Within games, especially the second one. And of course the very adorable and I guess now internet famous presenter. I think she's the creative director of the game. I don't remember her name, but she was the very bubbly woman that was up there and it captured the hearts of millions around the globe. She was great. I actually bumped into her, or not bumped into her, but I saw her on the show floor the next day, which I was like, oh, there she is. Yeah, she's as adorable, I guess, in real life as she was on that stage. But Ghostwire Tokyo, that's a cool looking thing. And then there was also that Deathloop, which is like it's like a kind of 70s, almost like kind of had like a blaxploitation vibe, but the two assassins like trying to kill each other, and I guess that's the point of the game. Again, both of those games had like cinematic trailers, so it was hard to kind of make out what they were exactly, but they looked promising, just conceptually. But other than that, they didn't talk about Starfield or Elder Scrolls, which I didn't expect to at all, because why would those games are like 100 years away. And of course, we got Todd Howard out there and addressing Fallout 76, which is the big one for me in terms of like, do they make a joke about it? Like, do they have the gall to make a joke about that game, or do they just be really kind of genuine and earnest and be like, hey guys, we get it, we messed up, check under your seats. Oh, what's that? It's a canvas bag. We're sorry. They did announce some like interesting updates for it. Like, so they had a free trial that has since expired, to get people in the game, and then they announced that Battle Royale mode, which, sure, why not? I'll try it. I have the game, so it came with my Xbox, so I can try it, and it's free. And also that first expansion, which looks cool and is also kind of funny, because the point of that expansion that I don't remember the name of is that it's like, hey, we're adding NPCs and quests, which basically means that, hey, we're making this more of a Fallout game. And that's the expansion, which is funny, but at least they're listening. And again, it's free, so why not? Go for it. It can't make the game any worse. So that's pretty cool. But other than that, Bethesda was like, a little lukewarm on this year. Devolver had their normal kind of like parody press conference thing, which is funny because like I was wondering like how would you make fun of the E3 this year, because like people are doing less and less press conferences. And that's kind of what the whole joke of the presentation was, is that the entire show was themed around them shifting to like a Nintendo Direct style thing and being all wacky and over the top as the Devolver conferences usually are. It was only 20 minutes long, but they showed some cool looking games, and it was a quick like in and out thing. The PC Gamer Show, that's always feels like a bit of a forgotten son. And I think it's because, it says PC Gamer Show. It's kind of more of a niche thing. So if you're not into PC gaming, then you're probably like, well, why should I watch this? But it's still worth watching because they don't cover just PC exclusive games. They cover games. I mean, they certainly have PC exclusive games, but they cover games that are just coming to PC in general. So a lot of times, half the games are multi platform. And it's a cool spot because a lot of games are indie stuff that may not have been able to find a home on another stage. And since PC Gamer, obviously the outlet, is more of a it's not a platform or a publisher, it's just kind of a, it's just open, I guess, to any game. So you see some good stuff like Maneater, the kind of shark sandbox game where you play as a shark and swim around and just devour people. That got another showing. That still looks cool. There was the was it People Can Fly, or not People Can Fly, Gunfire Games, who did Darksiders 3, their new game, Remnant from the Ashes, which I actually played at Microsoft's booth and had fun with. It's like a co-op dungeon crawler shooter thing. We're fighting like these really cool looking monsters. That had a lengthy showing. They showed off like Evil Genius 2 and a bunch of other games. Like I highly recommend checking that out because it's like 2 hours, so it's really long, but it's also chock full of some really cool games. So don't sleep on the PC Gamer Show. There's also Limited Run, which I didn't watch. Limited Run, of course, is the company that pretty much just specializes in making physical copies of digital-only indie games. But they also do a press conference every year. I did not watch that one. I'm not sure what came out of it. I also did not catch Kinda Funny just because we were out at the time getting lunch or dinner or whatever it was. So no idea what they showed there, and I still haven't gone back to watch it. Did catch Ubisoft. Ubisoft had an okay one too. Like we got the full reveal for Watch Dogs Legion, which had been leaked before the show. That looks pretty cool. That was actually surprisingly the thing I probably walked away from the most excited from, or most excited for out of Ubisoft. So with Legion, it takes place in London, and the hook is that you take control of not necessarily a main character, but rather you jump around between NPCs in the world, and it's kind of like it's basically like Suikoden, the RPG, where you're just gathering God knows how many NPCs and civilians and recruiting them to your resistance force. And every character has their own specific skill sets. And then you can just choose to control one of them individually and switch between them. And they showed off a trailer kind of demonstrating just the range of like demographics you can take over, including the star of the show, Helen, the 70-year-old former assassin who is this old lady, and she's going around tasing people and then shooting them in the spine and then very gingerly vaulting over obstacles. That was the best part of the whole trailer. I was like, I'm sold on this game. I'm going to play the entire thing as Helen or some elderly person and see how long he can get through without killing them. Because that's the other thing with this game is that there's permadeath, it seems. So like if you lose somebody, they're gone forever and you switch to someone else. So I'm going to see how long I can get through with Helen. But yeah, this looks really cool. I was like, yeah, all right, Watch Dogs. I still haven't played Watch Dogs 2. I played Watch Dogs 1 at launch and was pretty lukewarm on it. 2 I've yet to play, but I've heard it's better. And then Legion comes out early next year. I don't remember the month they gave it, but I know it's like, I'm going to say like springtime 2020 because everything's coming out springtime 2020. But other than that, they didn't show Skull and Bones, which I was surprised. I figured they would show that again just to make us want to be excited for this thing that got delayed, or at least kind of like remind us of why the wait might be worth it. No new Assassin's Creed, of course, because there isn't one this year, but not even a confirmation of the alleged Viking setting. They did have an Assassin's Creed orchestra play, so all those famous Assassin's Creed songs, such as the intro, like the main theme, the like, I think that's how it goes, you know. And then other than that, I could not hum an Assassin's Creed song off the top of my head. So I was listening to that and being like, yeah, I guess this is all music from the games. And I've played a bunch of those games, but they're not exactly known for their memorable scores. And let's see, we've got the Just Dance presentation, as we always do this every year. You know, a bunch of goofy dancing and goofy outfits. No Splinter Cell at all. No mention of it. I'm a bit shocked. And I'm not even like a Splinter Cell fan. I've never really played them, but I kind of was like, I think this will be the year that they do it after the kind of sort of kind of tease on Twitter. But I guess not. Nothing. At least not now. No Rayman. Boo. No Prince of Persia. Not surprising, but still, no. Jesus, what did Ubisoft really show outside of Watch Dogs? And Watch Dogs kind of started the show. I think I remember watching and thinking like, yeah, they kind of put all their eggs in the front half of the show at Watch Dogs, and everything else that came after was kind of like, you know, it's pretty hard to top Helen. It really is, and it showed. So Ubisoft was like, eh. And then there was also Square Enix, who was, again, kind of, eh. I mean, the big thing was, of course, Final Fantasy VII Remake. We got a more look at that. That looks cool. We got the first reveal of Tifa, our girl, and she's going around doing some really sick-looking combos and uppercutting dudes and just kicking the crap out of people, and just looks like a ton of fun to play. We got the gameplay walkthrough, which is what I wanted, of like, here's how this works exactly. Here's how combat works, all that good stuff. And then we got the best news of all, which was a freaking release date, and it's coming sooner than I thought, which is March 3rd, 2020. And I don't know if it's still episodic, because they said that the game was 2 Blu-ray discs worth of content. Or actually, I think it is still episodic, because I think the first half takes place entirely in Midgar. I think it's going to be, I guess it's going to be 2 parts, it sounds like. It's still not entirely clear, or at least not that I saw, but it seems like it'll be 2 parts. But regardless, it starts March 3rd, which I was like, all right, yeah, like, holy crap, like Cyberpunk and Final Fantasy VII getting not only hard release dates, but like they're a month away from each other. Like, early next year is going to be pretty awesome from what it sounds like. But other than that, Square showed off like some new RPGs. Like, you got the I can't remember if they showed this at their conference or Nintendo. They kind of blur together a bit. But in terms of, I guess, of what Square's doing in general, they got the Legend of Mana collection, which bundles Final Fantasy Adventure, as well as the ever-popular Secret of Mana. And I think Legend of Mana, the sequel, I believe that's what it's called. I've never played any of those games. I've always wanted to play Secret of Mana. I have it on my SNES Classic as well as my Wii U, and still have never gotten to it. So maybe this will be the thing. Like, it's on my Switch. I would rather play that on the go. So that's a really cool thing. They announced a new Romancing Saga, as well as like a remake of, or not a remake, but like they're releasing one of the existing Romancing Saga games in the West. I don't know if they're tweaking it in some way, but cool. Dragon Quest Builders 2 got some love. That's coming later this year. It's already been out in Japan for quite a while. Let's see. Final Fantasy VIII is getting remastered. And keep in mind, remaster, not remake. So it's getting the Final Fantasy, I would imagine, like the Final Fantasy 12 treatment at the most, like a Zodiac Age treatment, or if it's going to be like the port of like 7 and 9 to console. But they used the term remaster, which made me think more of the Final Fantasy 12 Zodiac Age. But, you know, everyone was upset that 8 was kind of the odd man out when they brought the PlayStation era Final Fantasy games to current consoles. So here it is. I think it's cool. I like 8. I still believe it's a bit of an overrated game. I think it's the weakest of those 3 PlayStation games. But still, it's cool that fans can finally have the PlayStation trilogy of Final Fantasy games finally in one spot. So I'm curious to see what that remaster, like what that means, if in terms of like if there's any gameplay implications. You know what I would do? I would just take out that stupid junction system, because it's just the worst combat system they've ever done. I'm just gonna say. That's my hot take, I guess. No Quiet Man 2. Oh no. Too bad. I guess we'll have to keep holding on for that. No third party stuff really much in general, except the Avengers. That got its full reveal. Finally, Crystal Dynamics Avengers game that has been rumored, or not rumored, but it was teased way back in 2017. Finally see it, and it was met with a resounding, maybe, yeah, kind of cool. I don't know. And that's kind of how I was watching it. So, the premise of the game is that it's the Avengers, and it's like they're getting celebrated. It's like A-Day or whatever in San Francisco. And then there's this big attack, and then Captain America gets killed somewhere in there, and then something happens where a bunch of civilians get killed, and this kind of causes like a Civil War-esque chain reaction from the government of being like, superheroes are bad now, and we're banning them. So the Avengers break up, and the game jumps to 5 years later, and we see the Avengers all broken up and they have to get back together because of a new threat. It's a cool idea, even if it is a bit it's a bit derivative. That's an anime. Nothing surprising, I guess, from the story. The big thing that everyone's upset about, and kind of what I'm a little iffy about, is just the character models, like the designs of the Avengers. Like, they look off, and they're clearly going for like the movie versions of those characters. At least that's what it seems like. Especially, like, it's clear to me, like Hulk in particularly very much looks like Mark Ruffalo's character, because Mark Ruffalo's Hulk doesn't really look like the Hulk of the comics. Like, they're clearly tapping into that, but it feels like they tried to make those characters but didn't have the rights to their likenesses, so they kind of just did like we'll do like an approximation of Scarlett Johansson. And they don't look good. They look just weird. Like, I remember watching it and like feeling like something was off, but I couldn't put my finger on it. And it wasn't until after the fact when someone had wrote an article kind of talking about the internet's reaction to that trailer and compiled a bunch of really funny just tweets reacting to it. And someone had the best tweet where they had a screenshot of all the Avengers and then had a clip of the scene in Spaceballs where the guy's like, "You idiots! You've captured their stunt doubles." And I was like, yes, one, that's hilarious. Two, that sums it up perfectly. Like, they feel like the stunt doubles for the Marvel Cinematic Universe cast. And I wish they just kind of done their own thing in terms of like look at Marvel Spider-Man, the Insomniac game, where that Peter Parker doesn't look like any other Peter Parker. It's not like they were like, we're going to make our own approximation of Tom Holland or Tobey Maguire or whoever, like, or any of the like TV show versions or whatever. It's theirs Peter Parker. Like, it looks distinctly theirs, but still looks like Peter Parker in terms of following the legacy traits of that character of like, he's got brown hair, he's got brown eyes, he's maybe this high and whatever. Other than keeping those traits, it's like we're gonna kind of make him our own thing. So I look at that, I can see that Peter Parker in front of a line of Peter Parker and be like, oh, that's the Insomniac one, but it still looks like Peter. Whereas the Avengers from Crystal Dynamics looks like, oh, that it's kind of Scarlett Johansson, but not really. Or like, that's clearly Mark Ruffalo, but not really. Thor looks like Jesus kind of weirdly. And then Captain America is the one that bothers me the most, and it's mostly his outfit, where like he has this like that police riot gear looking version of his costume just looks really bad. Like, it's really bulky in a bad way, and it just doesn't look good. Like, it looks like Chris Redfield from Resident Evil if he suddenly got incredibly patriotic. That's what it reminds me of. And I thought seeing it in person would help, because I went to the Avengers booth on the show floor, and they had all the costumes, like physical versions of them, like on display in these big cases. So I went up to the Captain America one, and I stared at it for a long time, just trying to like it, like really genuinely trying to like it. And I couldn't. I was like, no, I don't like this. It just doesn't look that good to me. So yeah, and the other problem with that trailer was that you didn't really get a sense of what the game was in terms of like, am I teaming up with friends? Is it a co-op game or is it a single player game? How's the action? Like, they showed some snippets of gameplay, but it was all the Avengers working separately, and I was like, okay, like, it'd be weird if you're only controlling one and the other ones aren't there. Like, is everyone else fighting in the background? Is it like a GTA 5 or Final Fantasy 7 Remake does the same thing where you're switching between them? Like, how is this gonna work? And they had the demo on the floor was like, it wasn't playable at the show, but their booth had a gameplay walkthrough that kind of went more in depth into it. I didn't go see that, but Zach did, and he told us about it. And it seems like his impression, as well as impressions of other people I read, seemed like it still wasn't entirely clear, but it did show off more combat, and the combat apparently looks really good, and that it is a co-op game, but it's still not like, is it Ultimate Alliance style? Is it local? Can I play with 4 friends or on the screen? It didn't seem like it. And like, just how does this work? How's the design? Like, how does it facilitate 4 players doing very different things in terms of like, if I'm it's got to be big enough to allow flying if you're like Thor and Iron Man to like, I'm going to fly around and, do cool stuff. And then at the same time, if I'm Hulk, can I like jump around and, do cool stuff like that, like slam people? How much, like, just like how is everything designed to facilitate these 5 characters? And also, where the hell is Hawkeye? How do you not, I mean, I think the impression I got from what I was hearing is that there might be more characters added either before the game or later. The trailer showed off Hank Pym, so we know he's in the game. Ant-Man. Whether or not he's playable is I'm not sure, but he's definitely in the game as a character. So like, will they appear throughout the story? Like, does the roster grow throughout the story? Like, maybe when you're collecting the Avengers after the 5 years, you're like, hey, we need Hawkeye, go get him. And then, Hawkeye comes in, and it's a really weird-looking, like, approximation of Jeremy Renner, or what have you. At least Hank Pym looked like an original Hank Pym, because obviously they can't do Michael Douglas. It'd be great if they just did young Michael Douglas, and you're like, hey, him, that Hank Pym, you guys know him. Yeah, I'm less jazzed about this game than I would like to be, given I'm a big Marvel fan. And, like with Marvel Ultimate Alliance, Marvel Ultimate Alliance 3, very, very around the corner, very soon, like the next week or so. How does this game, like, how can this game make me as excited for that or compete about that? I think I asked a similar question last week during the E3 preview, but yeah, like, it's hard to get excited for it when we got the big, like, Marvel team up coming very soon. And this game doesn't come out till May, so this game also got a hard release date of like May something. So it's crazy. Like, in 3 months we get Final Fantasy, Cyberpunk, Avengers, like boom boom boom, which is cool. And so they got a little less than a year to polish this up. I wonder if they're going to fix anything in terms of the designs, because there's been a very vocal outcry over it. At the very least, can we change Cap's armor, his outfit? Can we make it less like he's a FBI like SWAT man and more like Captain America, I guess? So yeah, I a bit tepid on the game right now. Cautiously optimistic, but emphasis on the cautious. And then finally we had, unless I'm forgetting someone, we had Nintendo. And Nintendo, by my money, probably had the best showing in terms of just the press conferences. We got the really cute bit at the beginning with Doug Bowser, with actual Bowser thinking that he was hosting the Direct, and sporting a very dashing tie. I think I would like to have corporate Bowser as a skin for Smash Brothers or something. That would be appreciated. But then, real Doug Bowser, the new Nintendo of America president, replacing old Reggie Fils-Aimé. Pour one out for Reggie Fils-Aimé, everyone. He's not dead. He's just retiring, but still, pour one out. And he takes over, and we get a pretty action-packed, 40 minutes, however long the Direct was. Kind of going through everything I expected from my preview, with the exception of no Bayonetta 3, which I didn't expect, but really hoped that we would see. But yeah, no Bayonetta. And the only kind of letdown outside of Bayonetta was that Animal Crossing got delayed. But we did get to see what it was. So it's Animal Crossing New Horizons. It seems like it's about, like, camping and like colonizing an uninhabited island. So it's Pocket Camp 2, basically. It's the new Pocket Camp. Just kidding. From what I can tell, this is like a traditional Animal Crossing game with some new tweaks. You can craft now, which I guess apparently wasn't a thing before, like gathering items and crafting them. But that game looked good, and the only bummer is that it got delayed. But hey, that usually works out the best for Nintendo. They are not shy about delaying things if they think it needs it. But everything else is still for this year. Like, we saw more Luigi's Mansion 3. That game looks good. Link's Awakening Remake, Fire Emblem, Astral Chain. Let's see, we also got 2 new Smash Brothers characters. The first being the hero from Dragon Quest. I'm still not sure if is it Dragon Quest 11 like the protagonist, or is it just Dragon Quest in general? And it's like, because all the Dragon Quest games have not very different, but like different protagonists, like in terms of their models. Like, isn't Dragon Quest 9 like a kid? So it's like, dude, are they skins and you just switch between them, even though they might be proportionately different? Or is it just the Dragon Quest 11 protagonist? I'm not sure, but that's cool. Even though Smash probably doesn't need another sword-based character, I think it's pretty good right now. And then the big one for me, and I think a lot of people, was Banjo-Kazooie coming to Smash. I thought the trailer was pretty cute and a nice little troll move of like making you think it's Banjo, but then it was Duck Hunt, but then it was Banjo. The Banjo-Kazooie stage looked cool, and then the music, of course, is awesome. So I was like, there we go. Phil Spencer's wish came true. We're getting Banjo in Smash. He comes, I think, this fall, and then the Dragon Quest character comes in the summer. So pretty cool. And then the thing for me that made the direct was the very end, where we got the very surprising teaser trailer for a sequel to The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. We are getting Breath of the Wild 2. I don't think it's called Breath of the Wild 2. Maybe it doesn't have a title yet. But it's a pretty dark trailer with like Link and Zelda exploring like some cave or temple, and then they're attacked by this malevolent looking entity. And yeah, everyone seems to take away that this seems like this could be a darker take for the series. My only question is, like, the trailer looked like it was still in that Hyrule, like that same map from the first game. And it's like, how do you do that in a sequel? Because the whole point of the first game was just how amazing it was to discover everything. So it would be a huge bummer to just put it back on this map that you're already intimately familiar with, and you can't just move things around, because that wouldn't make sense narratively, at least unless you find a way to make it make sense. But like, I hope it's a brand new region. I hope they're just showing that map just as like, hey, this is where you were when the game ended, so this is like the prologue, but, you know, you're gonna get sent to a whole new area, and you gotta, you know, discover everything there. Or did they do like a Link to the Past Zelda trope of maybe there's a Dark World, maybe you travel between Dark World, Hyrule map, and that has a bunch of, you know, that's an entirely different layout? Or do they do a Majora's Mask thing of like, oh, it's more or less the same game, just weirder, and just got some new stuff, but it's the same assets, the same world. I hope it's, you know, I want a new one. Like, I want a brand new map, new shrines, new everything. I want that feeling of discovery again, and I kind of hope they keep that dark tone. Like, you know, I don't want it to be super grim throughout the game, because Zelda, you know, is one of the best things about Zelda is kind of its quirk and its humor sometimes. But yeah, I Breath of the Wild could very well be my favorite game of this generation, and I could not be happier to see a follow up to that game, especially like just the possibilities of like taking what they've learned with that masterpiece and using that as a foundation to make it better. Like, imagine what that could be. Like, holy crap. So yeah, like Nintendo, I walked away from being very, very hyped, I guess, very excited to see what was coming in the future. And ultimately, that's what I walked away from all these press conferences. Like, even though some of them were underwhelming and kind of indicative of the fact that we're very much in a transition year, and that the real E3 in terms of next gen will be next year for sure, and we're kind of in a holding pattern until then. Like, you know, there was still some really cool stuff, and it was cool to see some like new stuff like Ghostwire Tokyo and Deathloop and what have you. So yeah, hit and miss, but still, you know, it's hard not to be excited for the future of games. So that was the press conferences. And now that that's done, let's take a quick break. And when I come back, we will talk about the show floor, the being in LA, just my adventures at E3 in detail when we get back. And I'm back. So let's talk about E3. Being there on the ground, heck of a week as it always is. So E3, of course, really began that Tuesday. The convention floor opened up for the world. We had a bit of a scare though the Monday before when we went to get our badges because Jack lost her ID like at the airport. Like she was telling us this story when she came in when she had a bit of a kerfuffle at the airport, or maybe not kerfuffle is not the right word. That makes me think that she got into like a fight. She didn't fight anyone, but basically she lost her ID and had to go through hell and high water to get through the airport. But unfortunately, she didn't have an ID for the entire trip, which you need to go get your E3 badge. So that was a whole thing that we had to go through in terms of talking to the people there and the security and trying to convince them that, hey, she has all this other form of identification. Is this cool? Thankfully, we met a very, very nice and very helpful security guard who led us to the appropriate people, who were also very nice and very helpful, and we managed to get it sorted out. Crisis averted there. Along the way there, we got to run into some old faces from my intern days at Game Informer. Ran into old Joe Juba and Kim Wallace. Shout out to those guys, as well as Serial Vasquez, who I have not met. He was not at GI when I was there, but I got to meet him for the first time, and we got to get to chatting, catch up, talk about what we were excited for the show. Literally having a water cooler chat as we were surrounding a actual water cooler because it was quite hot. It was pretty hot in LA for the first few days. It was surprising because I'm used to it being mild there, but it was kind of steamy, especially that day. It got better though as the week went on though. But after that, E3 opens the next Tuesday. Go there. And the first day is the easiest for at least press because they have press exclusive hours for the first 2 days where, of course, press industry gets to go on the show floor before everybody else. And by everybody else, I mean just the fans. And so I think the first day we got like 4 hours maybe because I think it opened, or maybe not even that. It was like maybe 3 because it opened at 11, I want to say. And then the public came in at 2-ish. So I guess, yeah, 4 hours, I guess. 11, 12, 1, 2. Yeah, 4 hours. Math. So it was actually the easiest day. And the very first thing I did was play the Final Fantasy VII Remake. I made it a point to do that. I actually had to shuffle an appointment around. I had to trade an appointment to do it, which actually worked out because I think it was Jack. She was late, so I had to take one of her earlier appointments, but then that clashed with my time to play Final Fantasy, so I had to get my other appointment, which was like an hour later, if that makes any sense. Well, basically what happened was that I went to the Square booth, saw Final Fantasy, as everyone did. That line filled up real quick. I got in there as it was forming, thankfully, so I didn't have to wait very long. And then it turned out that the line was for a ticket. And the ticket gave you a designated time to come back to the demo. It was like an hour long, like hour-long intervals, I guess. And so my ticket was from 12 to 1. Of course, this is like at 11 something, and they're like, okay, come back. And then all the 12 to 1 people will see it at the same time, which was actually a really smart way to do it because they anticipated that game would have a crowd. So instead of having just one giant continuous line at all times, just break it up so that people have to leave and come back. So the only people waiting there are generally the people there for their time. So kudos to Square for coming up with that system. I mean, I'm sure other people have done it, but I mean, kudos to them for using it, I guess. And so, I get my appointment straightened out. Went to go see El Hijo, which was the indie game that was shown during the PC Gamer show. It's got like a spaghetti western stealth game thing. It looked pretty cool. I'm not sure when this is gonna go up, or actually, or at least when this is gonna go up in relation to any of my E3 previews. So my write-up about El Hijo may or may not already be up on community.extralife.org. You can check there to see if it's up. I'm not sure when Jack will schedule that. But in the event that it's not up by the time you hear this, I thought it was a pretty fun game. Kind of like non-violent stealth. It's got a really cool look, like just design-wise. It's got like a really sharp, like the architecture. It's like really smooth angles. It almost reminds me of Monument Valley, the mobile game, a little bit. Not quite as abstract, but just the way the isometric view and some of the buildings just the perspective, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. But yeah, I saw that and then rushed back to Square, got in line for my Final Fantasy VII demo. And as I'm waiting in line, I'm just checking my phone. I'm actually looking at Nintendo's stuff because the Tuesday morning is when their Direct was going on. And I never get to watch their Direct anymore because it always starts when E3 opens. So like, it's, I'm already there in the convention center, so I can't watch it. So I'm just reading up on what's going on and stuff and being like, oh my god, Breath of the Wild 2. When all of a sudden, some dude comes by with a microphone and a cameraman and just starts interviewing random people in the line. He's really, really happy. He's like, oh my god, this is Final Fantasy VII Remake. Hey man, you're about to play Final Fantasy VII Remake. How excited are you? Which is not surprising. Like, you go to E3 enough and you kind of see like a lot of people there with cameras and microphones doing their thing, talking to people, either with an outlet or maybe like a streamer with like their phone and their selfie sticks, just going around monologuing or chatting with people. So you just kind of get used to it. So I see him and I'm like, oh, okay, he's just talking to this guy like right in front of me. He's not going to talk to me. He's probably going to talk to that guy and then move on. And then, nope. Sure enough, as soon as he finishes talking to the guy in front of me, he comes right to me with the mic and he's like, hey, you're about to see Final Fantasy VII Remake. How do you feel? And I was caught completely off guard. Didn't really know how to react. I was like, I don't know who this is, or just the camera right there. And I just kind of say off the top of my head, like something like, oh, I can't believe, this is actually happening. Pretty cool, wow. And trying really hard not to seem dopey and wondering how many people at home are watching this. Like, is this live? Is this going to be edited? I don't know. But yeah. And, he nods his head, smiles, and then moves on. And I'm like, okay, that just happened. And then afterwards, I found out that apparently he was a gentleman named Huber with Easy Allies, which is a popular gaming outlet. I'm not familiar with them myself, but one Zach Wojnar educated me, smartened me up on them. Apparently, the same thing happened to our friend Odell Harmon, of course, former guest on the show, Who's That Pokemon, episode 8, if you remember him, as well as, part of the Game Fanatics and his own podcast, Full Circle. I'm just plugging everybody. Everybody gets a plug. But yeah, Zach's like, oh my god, if you got interviewed by Huber too, I'm gonna be so jealous. And I was like, well, I don't know who that is. So I mean, maybe it was him, maybe it wasn't. I don't know. And it wasn't until after E3 that Zach messaged me with a link to this video from Easy Allies where he just says, "You son of a bitch." And sure enough, that's who it was. So if you want to go look that up, you can. I think it's like Easy Allies Huber report E3 2019, but I'm in there. I posted it on Twitter and Facebook, so if you follow me on either of those, you've probably seen the post. But yeah, it was a cool thing. Like, I might not know who he is, but he seems like a fun, happy dude, and I'm sure it's a good outlet, I would imagine. But cool little moment there. Pretty nice.
How you feeling?
Pretty good, excited. This is a real thing that's actually happening right now, so
We're all in disbelief, I think. It looks so good.
But yeah, back to Final Fantasy VII. I get in line. It's a cool booth because they got like it looks like Midgar, and they have the booth people dressed up like Turks and are like role playing as Turks the whole time. Like the lady that was like guarding the entrance to the demo kept talking about catching terrorists and asking if we were bringing in any contraband, and I'm asking her about Reno and what's he doing, and she's just like scoffing at Reno, saying like, oh, he's so annoying and da. Nice commitment. And those Turk suits also very stylish. I kind of want one. God knows how much those things must cost. But yeah, we get into the demo. And it was cool because they take you into a room that just had like a video. And at first I got scared. I was like, wait, is this not playable? I thought this was playable. Is it just going to be like one of those video demos? I was like, I could have sworn during Square's thing they said you could play it on the booth. And the video was just like a tutorial, more or less, like it just saying how to play the game, but it was kind of framed as not Shinra, but an Avalanche rebel hacking into Shinra's security to talk to you, the person breaking in there, Cloud, and teaching you, showing you the ropes, saying, hey, this is how you cut things, this is how you use your magic, this is how you pause the combat. And then it was a cool little video. And then after that was done, they opened the door and then led us into a big area with just rows upon rows upon rows of TVs with the Final Fantasy VII Remake demo. And I'm like, oh yes, it's happening. Here we go. Like, one of my favorite games ever. The remake people have always asked for and never thought it would happen. I'm going to touch it finally. I'm going to see what this is. How does it feel? I put my hands on it. I hit that press start. And it starts out pretty much if you watch the Square Enix E3 thing, like the slice of gameplay they showed, which was the, Cloud and Barrett breaking into Shinra and fighting their way through the bowels of Shinra and then fighting the Scorpion Sentinel at the end. That's what the demo was. So I fought a bunch of waves of enemies, fought the Scorpion. Everything was beautiful, like even more so than the trailer. And it played really well. I liked it. I liked the, even though it was still like the mix of action and turn-based, like it took a little bit of getting used to, because it's like going from slash, hack and slash, and then having to pause and kind of go more to traditional JRPG, like, okay, I'm going to manually select fire, and then maybe shift the Barret, and then, maybe pick Thunder, or like, his special stuff. But I got used to it, and it was fun. And once again, you can read my full thoughts written out, articulated better than maybe I'm saying, over at community.extralife.org. Again, that should be up soon if it isn't already. So you can read my entire thing. Please read it. I did a good job. I worked really hard to write it up. So, but yeah, the long short of it is I like the demo. I'm excited to see how that works with a full party. So like 3 people, and I want to play that game. I mean, I wanted to before, but now I'm like, all right, now that I've played it, like now I'm really itching to see what the full thing looks like, because man, that thing was impressive. The other thing about like going through the show floor, and this is kind of the general vibe I got throughout like the entire event, all 3 days, was that it was noticeably deader. And I say that relatively because it's still a ton of people there. You're still, running into crowds. But compared to the last 3 that I've been to, it was just noticeably less claustrophobic. And that was especially true in the West Hall. And for those who have never been to E3, the convention center and the event itself is largely divided in between 2 halls. There's the West Hall and the South Hall. In between those halls, there's a concourse hall, but that's not really for the public. That's just a bunch of cubicles and little meeting rooms for pretty much industry and press to go see stuff. And then, of course, there's the various meeting rooms kind of in the upper floors that are, again, is more for industry and press. So yeah, the West Hall is the hall that in years past had the big 3. So Nintendo, Sony, and Microsoft all occupy the South Hall, or the West Hall, I should say. And, generally right up against each other, especially Sony and Microsoft. You've probably seen the photos of like the Microsoft and Sony kind of like banners, like face to face, like you walk down that hallway. That's usually how it was arranged. And yeah, so this year, of course, Microsoft again opted to do everything that they had over at the Microsoft Theater right across the street, next to the Staples Center, and Sony wasn't there at all. So it was Nintendo by themselves in the West Hall, and my God, was it dead in there. And again, I say that like as a relative term, but it was, so here was weird. Like we saw the floor plan before we went to LA, just to get a feel for everyone, where everyone was going to be. And I remember just looking at the West Hall being like, oh my God, like, because you see the spot that Sony used to occupy, and it was just filled with a bunch of random stuff. Like GameSpot moved over there, and I think their booth might have been, maybe I'm wrong, but it looked a little bigger than normal, which maybe it wasn't, but I wouldn't be surprised if it was, because they certainly have the space. And then there was this weird thing called the Unreal Garden that I'm still not sure what it is, but it was like this interactive art thing. I'm not sure. It was like people standing in front of like weird TV screens with like abstract images and taking pictures. I still like have no idea what it was. And I thought it was associated with Epic at first because, Unreal. But as far as I could tell, it's not. So I don't know what it was. I really don't. And then it was just a bunch of random stuff like there was an esports thing. The National Video Game Museum showed up and set up an exhibit. They're located down in Frisco, Texas, if you've ever heard of them. And I don't think I've ever seen them at E3 before, but they were there with like an exhibit of like old games and artifacts, which was cool. And I wandered over there one of the days with Naomi, and we were just looking around. But yeah, it was just like, it just got the feeling of like they seemed desperate to fill this space with something. Like just anyone that wants to have a booth that's even vaguely video game related, please come, because Sony's gone, and now with them and Microsoft gone, we need to fill this space with something, because Activision pulled out, so they were gone. Even IGN didn't even have a booth, which they were there, like IGN reporters, but every E3 they have like a big booth to do like their live shows and all that stuff like GameSpot does. But this year, I guess they were like, nah, we don't need all that. Which I don't blame them. I mean, for an E3 that did, do you really need two competing outlets having to split developers and whatever between GameSpot and IGN? I mean, I guess not. But yeah, like walking around there, like the only other major thing that was in there besides Nintendo was Sega, I guess. Like Sega's always in the West Hall. So it was Sega, and then after that, that was it for like the big players. Like the next tier was like Xseed, but Xseed is super niche, like super duper Japanese, and then Indiecade, which is cool, but it's still Indiecade. It's relatively small. And then yeah, like after that was it. Like I said, a bunch of random stuff like computer like manufacturer like hardware parts and like keyboards and whatever crap. Just stuff like that. And every time I went over there, like it was like Nintendo was popping more so than probably before. They had their booth themed after like a dual theme of Pokemon and Luigi's Mansion, which was surprising. Going into E3, I assumed that Animal Crossing would be the theme of the booth, but then it got delayed, so it wasn't, which is disappointing strictly because I thought an Animal Crossing booth would have been pretty cool because like that just lends itself so well to a booth. I remember the E3, I think it was 2017, that they did New Donk City as their booth, and I thought that was super cool, like walking around there. So I was like, man, it'd be cool if they did Animal Crossing, like maybe they got Tom Nook, like an actual Tom Nook walking around and like picking your pocket or something. But no, it was just the Pokemon and Luigi's Mansion. And for the first year ever, I didn't play any Nintendo stuff because the lines were super long. From what I understand, the lines for Luigi's Mansion and Pokemon were 4 to 5 hours, which is insane. But at least for Pokemon, I could kind of see that because Pokemon's super popular and hardcore Pokemon fans are maybe a little bit insane. But Luigi's Mansion? Really? Like 4 to 5 hours for Luigi's Mansion. And I'm not hating on Luigi's Mansion. I've never really played any of them. I've only played a bit of the first one, never touched the second one. I would like to play both of them. I just haven't. But I think they're cool games. I have no problem with the game itself. But Luigi's Mansion? Like, that's just such a... To me, that just feels like a B-tier Nintendo first-party series. And people are waiting 4 to 5 hours to play the third game. And it's not even like... I don't know. Like, I was just surprised to hear that. Because I remember walking by it the first day thinking, like, you know what? I could probably get in Luigi's Mansion pretty quick. Like, that line probably isn't terrible. But then I didn't. And then, I don't know, maybe I missed out. Maybe it wasn't terrible at that point. But, man, 4 to 5 hours, huh? To suck some ghost up. More power to you. And then the other big line was, I believe, Link's Awakening, I heard, had a really long line, too. Like, comparable to the other two. But... I didn't really have to play anything that was in there. Like the only games that I was interested in was Link's Awakening and Marvel Ultimate Alliance. And then Link's Awakening being as long as it was, I wouldn't have had time to wait in there even if I wanted to. But then at the same time, it's like, you know what? This is a known quantity. Like, I've gotten really picky about what I choose to play when I go to conventions now. Like, what do I want to wait in line for? Like, even if it's games I'm super excited for and I know I'm going to play day one, a lot of times I've noticed as I've gotten to go to more and more of these shows that I'm like, you know what, I can wait. I don't have to play this like now. Like I think I know what I'm getting with rare exceptions, or not rare exceptions, but like some exceptions, like Final Fantasy. Like it's got to be special like that. Kingdom Hearts 3 was the same last year. Where it's like I have to play that because that's been mythical for so long. I need to touch this to see what this is and how it plays, and just to confirm that it exists. Link's Awakening 1, I played the original game and I love it. And just looking at people play it, it's like, yep, at the end of the day, it's a top-down Zelda game. I've played a ton of those. I know what that is. Like, I could feel my muscle memory kind of triggering as I watch people cut grass and do Zelda stuff. Beautiful game. I love that diorama art style. But I was like, you know what? I don't really need to, like, actually play this to know what it is. So I won't wait. So I didn't play anything in Nintendo. I didn't wait for Marvel Ultimate Alliance. I didn't even try to see what the line was to play anything else in there. Like, they had Dauntless in there. I want to say they had... Maybe Demon X Machina, I should say, probably. Astral Chain was not playable from what I understand, which is disappointing, but yeah, Nintendo was the busiest, and I wonder if those long lines were kind of a side effect of not having any competition in terms of Sony and Microsoft. Like, without those two big, like, flames for all the moths to flock to, everyone just goes, well, I guess we'll just do Nintendo. So, like, it just kind of inflated the lines. I get, maybe that's, I feel like that's a part of it. So, Sega was there. They had Judgment. I played some Judgment. That game's Yakuza, basically, which made me want to go back to play Yakuza 0 because I'm still in the middle of that game. But combat, pretty much the same. I'm going to say very similar, pretty much the same. Exploration and world design, like the hub world, pretty much the same. You're running around Tokyo, I think it is, or A City. The only new stuff that I saw in the demo, of course, was the investigative aspect where I had to like follow a gentleman and try to identify him from a composite photo. That stuff was fun. And also, I probably should have explained, but like if you're not aware of what Judgment is, this is the new game from the Yakuza team that's not Yakuza for the first time in forever. And it's about like a private investigator. He used to be a disgraced defense lawyer who quits being a defense lawyer when a guy that he got acquitted for murder goes ahead and potentially murders someone else. So it makes him look awful, basically. And then 3 years pass and he becomes a private investigator and he's trying to solve some crimes and, I don't know, maybe gain some redemption. It actually comes out this coming week on the 25th. So the build I had had to be the finished one. But it looks really nice. It runs on the Yakuza 6 engine from what the Sega guy told me, but it's like the best looking version of that engine. So I'm excited for it. It looks like it still has like a lot of the weird goofy humor that Yakuza has. But with like some Phoenix Wright-esque like mechanics. So as a fan of Phoenix Wright, and I've been enjoying Yakuza 0 immensely, I'm down with like an amalgamation of those two things. So it looked cool. Most of my time was spent in IndieCade just because a lot of my appointments were around there, and I played a bunch of stuff that, again, I'll have some write-ups on in the coming week or so. So again, keep an eye out. community.extralife.org. Do it. But real quick, I played Tiny Metal, which is a cool little kind of Advance Wars throwback that is actually the sequel. I think it's Full Metal Rumble, because the original Tiny Metal came out, I want to say 2 years ago or so, and it's on Switch and PC and other stuff. I tried out a game called Terrarium. It's like Terror and Terrarium together, but it's very Pikmin-y. It was like basically like Pikmin, but like anti-Pikmin, where the goal was to kind of like destroy your little followers, because they spawn by, like, when they die they multiply by the living ones, like taking their corpses and using them to spawn more of them. And then it has this mechanic where if you run out of like little guys, soldiers, not Pikmin, you lose. But if they get out of hand, like if their population goes over the limit, then you lose too. So you have to kind of like cull the herd while you're also trying to use them to solve puzzles in kind of Pikmin-like manner. So like, but you're more willing to sacrifice them just because you don't want them to get to breed too much, basically. It's really interesting. I'm excited to kind of like write that up, because I had fun with it, and it was just like, this is like, I told the guys like, this feels like the anti-Pikmin. So that was a cool little thing. I also, and this is to go back in the story a little bit, one of the coolest things about this entire trip was, so I'm a big wrestling fan. If you're not aware, I love wrestling. I watch a lot of WWE as well as other stuff. And this E3, I kept running into wrestlers, or specifically 2 wrestlers, and more specifically 1 wrestler multiple times. And that is one Kenny Omega, the Cleaner, formerly of New Japan, currently of All Elite Wrestling, former New Japan IWGP World Champion. In fact, he was that as of earlier this year in his last match in New Japan before he lost it and then came back to the States. He was there. Of course, Kenny, a known gamer, If you don't believe me, check out his Wrestle Kingdom entrance from this year, where it was Undertale themed, basically. I ran into him 3 times in 4 days at E3. And the first time was the Monday when we all went to lunch at Shaquille O'Neal's restaurant. And first of all, Shaquille O'Neal's restaurant is very expensive, but it's very good. We had perhaps the best fried chicken I've ever had in my life in Shaquille O'Neal's restaurant. Like a whole platter, like a whole chicken's worth of fried chicken. Jack and I shared, and it was incredible. But as soon as we walked in there, I looked to my left, and there he is, Kenny Omega, in his tight pink polo shirt because of his muscles, and he's getting ready to leave, and I just like flip out like, oh my god, it's Kenny Omega. And, you know, I have to stop him. I have to say something. So I like, very awkward, I'm like, Kenny! And he sees me, and he's like, hey, good to see you. And I'm like, hey! And we shake hands. He's got a firm grip. He doesn't have the worker handshake. I guess that's gone the way of the dodo. And, you know, he's like, hey, you know, bye. You know, I'm like, hey, good to see you, bye. And then I'm like, oh my god, I met Kenny Omega. And I'm just nerding out for the rest of the meal as I'm munching on incredibly delicious and otherworldly fried chicken. And then the second time I met him was, I want to say 2 days later. Yes, 2 days later at Indiecade. I was there for an appointment. And then Zach, who was also in Indiecade for his own appointment, messages me saying, hey, that curly-haired, like, guy, the wrestler that you met the other day, he's in here. And I'm like, Kenny? And I look around, and sure enough, there he is. There's that curly head of his. And he's in Indiecade. I'm like, what's he doing here? And of course, I go up to him, and I'm like, this time I have to get a picture. Because I didn't get a picture the first time, but this time I have to. So I go over. He remembers me, which was cool. It's like, oh, you're the guy from the restaurant. I'm like, yeah. I'm like, hey, can I get a picture with you? And again, he's so nice. Maybe because he's Canadian. Of course, he's a Winnipeg boy. You know, Canadians are just super nice, but he just, you know, we get in there, we take a nice selfie. Probably the best selfie I've ever taken as a guy that does not take selfies at all. And I kind of had to for a reason that I'll get into maybe later. But we take the picture, shakes his hand again, and I'm just like, yeah, I did it. Met Kenny Omega again. And then the third time I met him was the next day after E3 ended, and we went out to dinner to celebrate. And we go to Rockin' Fish, which is a great little restaurant right next to the Staples Center. Same stretch of restaurants that Shaquille occupies. And it was actually, we go there every year. This was actually our second time going this trip. And we're walking there, and I'm talking to Naomi, and we pass by GameSpot's big outdoor stage that they have. And this is where they had like their special guests come up and do, you know, game bits or whatever. And Kenny Omega had been there about an hour before we walked past it for his scheduled appearance. And I mentioned that to Naomi, like, oh yeah, he was here not that long ago. And she's like, oh, that's cool. He's probably nearby. And I'm like, yeah, wouldn't it be crazy if he was at the restaurant that we're going to? Like, he just shows up. And we're like, ha, 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 ha. We're funny. That's not going to happen. And so we get in there, we sit down in our booth. And I swear, not even 5 minutes before we get there, guess who walks in? That's right. Kenny goddamn Omega walks in with some people, I don't know, managers, who knows, and sits one booth away from us. There's just one booth separating us from Kenny Omega, and I'm like freaking out, and we're all freaking out, because it's like, what are the odds of that? Like, are you kidding me? Like, what is he doing? Like, is he stalking me? I mean, that's probably not true, but what if it is? What if Kenny Omega is stalking Marcus Stewart? What if I'm part of an angle, like a wrestling angle that I'm not aware of yet? Maybe there's some AEW videos out there of me in it. Maybe they filmed this and I was unaware and they're trying to set me up. Maybe I'm going to get signed by AEW. Is Tony Khan listening to this? Is he going to throw money my way? Maybe I don't know if I can. I don't know if I can go in the ring, but I could at least make a good, like, maybe mouthpiece for somebody. Anyone that you need to get over as a talker. But yeah, Kenny's there. And of course, Naomi's like, are you going to go over there and talk to him? I'm like, nah, I don't have to this time. Like, I met him twice. Talked to him twice, took a picture. Plus, he's eating, and everyone knows Celebrity Rule 101 is you never disturb them when they're eating. That's just, you know, good kosher. And I was like, you know what? I'm not going to force it. Like, if he wanders over and we maybe lock eyes, then yeah, I'll say hi, see if he remembers. Other than that, I don't need to go over and, like, have another moment with him. Like, I've already had two, so I'm good. It's cool enough that I can just look up and just see him there, just doing his thing. So that was cool. I also met AJ Styles of the WWE, former WWE champion. Another one of my favorites, probably my favorite in WWE actually, and in TNA, and ran into him on the show floor. And he was cool because he actually stuck around and talked to Naomi and I for a while. Or not for a while, but for a few minutes. It felt like an eternity to me. It's like, oh my god, he's actually staying around to have a conversation. And I'm asking him about like, hey, how was Gears 5? Because if you watched the Microsoft thing, of course, there was the bit where they brought up the WWE wrestlers to play Gears 5. It was him, Xavier Woods of the New Day, and one Tyler Breeze. And I asked him how Gears was, and he was like, oh, it was awesome. He's really enthusiastic. Naomi mentions like, oh yeah, Marcus is a huge wrestling fan, and AJ just kind of lights up like, oh man, we need more people like you. And I'm like, the whole time. Got a selfie with him too. Not as good as the selfie with Kenny. It was a little blurry. It was maybe a little. I didn't turn the flash on either. It was a little. I was freaking out. Okay, I was trying to keep my cool. The phenomenal one is next to me. So yeah, this E3 wrestlers. I mean, if you want to have my two favorite things in one place, just put wrestlers in the midst of video games, and then I'm a very happy camper. But anyways, IndieCape was cool. And let's see, what else did I play on the floor? I played some of that Borderlands 3 over at Microsoft's theater. Borderlands 3 was in two spots. So in the South Hall, Borderlands 3 had possibly the biggest booth dedicated to one game next to Fortnite. Like, Fortnite was right next to Borderlands 3. And it had this giant booth, which I guess you would expect for one of the biggest games in the world. And it had like demo stations. It had this like physical competition thing where it was like this like bounce. It was like this thing where they were having people climb into like this bouncy pad and having you jump this rotating series of like logs, and like it was like a real life platforming challenge. I don't know what it was, but I saw a bunch of people do it and get whacked in the face. So yeah, but that's not surprising, I guess, because it's Fortnite. Like, they had a giant replica bus floating around the thing. But right next to them, Borderlands, huge booth, giant, like, I mean, massive video screens playing gameplay and like theme songs. They had the statues of all the Vault Hunters set up in the front where you could take pictures with them. And then they just had like a ton of demo stations. And I tried waiting in line for that one. And that line did the thing that you always hate when you get into lines for anything, especially like roller coasters or something, where like it looks like shorter than it is because you see the line, and based on what you can see, you're like, oh, okay, it looks like it's gonna go up here and turn, and then I'll be at the demo. But as soon as you get to that point where you think it's gonna turn, it like tricks you, and you're like, oh no, this actually wraps around the building. I didn't see that. And sure enough, it wrapped around this entire booth. It was like this like, I don't know if it was Mixer, but it was like actually no, I think it was all Gearbox actually, because it was a bunch of streamers in all the rooms. They're like in their little glass box of emotion, and it has like a bunch of like Borderlands spray paint on the wall. So it was like Gearbox bringing in streamers to play Borderlands 3 and be hyped about it. So you had to wrap around their whole little box, and then you got to the demo, which would have taken a long ass time, and I did not have time for it. I gave myself an hour to see if I could get to it before my next appointment. And then once I saw that I had to wrap around the streamer area, I was like, oh, that's not happening. So I got out of the line. But then when I went to Microsoft's theater the next morning, they had Borderlands 3 there with a fraction of the line. And I was like, oh, great, I can play it here. And so I did. And the reason I wanted to play Borderlands was because I've said this on previous episodes, that I am not super duper hyped about Borderlands 3. I don't think it's going to be a bad game, but it also just looks like more Borderlands. And I wanted to know if I wanted to confirm that. I wanted to see if playing it would make me excited, because like I've said a million times, the hook with Borderlands, at least back in the day, was that it was a loot shooter. But now we have a million of those, so it's not a hook anymore. So what does it do to make it stand out and, get me back in? I wanted to find that and see if I could maybe get a glimpse of what that was playing this. And so I played a demo. You had one of two choices of Vault Hunter. You could pick the Siren. I don't remember their names, but the Siren lady that has the like Vishnu arms, and then the what was he? The soldier guy that has all the gadgets. Like, he had like a drone, and like he can send like a hologram of himself. I picked that guy. and you go through like one level that leads to a boss fight. And it was funny because as we were waiting in line, like once we got close to the front, one of the Gearbox people are come up to us to talk to us about the demo, and he like stresses like, "Hey, just so you know, we really want you to get to this boss. So like, you're free to do whatever you want, but like, I know this is Borderlands, but you don't have to open every chest. Everything you do, like nothing's gonna be saved. Like your character's gonna be wiped as soon as you wipe away from this demo. So like basically stressing like don't spend your time looting, just shoot and go because we really want you to see the whole level." So I do that. And I'm playing it and I'm like, oh yeah, this feels like Borderlands. And I have not touched Borderlands since the pre-sequel back in 2013. So it's been a long time since I've even like really looked at that game or any of those games, I should say. And one thing that took me back, I was like, oh man, these enemies, like they all have health bars. That's right. And it's funny that I say that now is that I'm playing The Division 2. I recently started playing it and I'm liking it a lot so far. And they have health bars too, but also the ballistics, at least the damage seems more realistic. Like, if you pop a guy in the head, if it doesn't kill him in one head, it's gonna take a nice chunk of their life unless they're wearing armor. Whereas Borderlands, it's more like almost like an RPG where I was like instinctively just going for headshots. And I'm like I'm getting into my flow that I get in a lot of games where like, okay, like if I'm running or I'm moving fast and I just get into some headshots, I can like keep going because they're probably gonna be dead. And then Borderlands, you forget like, oh no, like they're like sponges basically of like I'm shooting these guys and then like expecting them to drop and like running past them and then I'm getting shot from behind. They're not dead when I think they should be dead. Like playing a lot of Destiny because like even though Destiny's a loot shooter too, like you shoot a guy in the head, they're done. Like they're done. So I was like, oh crap. And then I also forgot how easily you can be overwhelmed in Borderlands and just get completely just suffocated with gunfire. And so I died a fair bit early on as I was trying to get my Borderlands instincts back in terms of like, okay, this is the flow of this game. And I don't know if I like it as much as I did just because I've played so many shooters since then, but I don't hate it either. I was like, I got my bearings, like started playing the game the way it wanted to be played, I guess. The guns felt fine. I didn't really get anything too crazy in terms of like wacky guns. Like I didn't get the guns with legs, unfortunately, but the character I had, like he had some cool abilities, like the drone thing was cool. And again, since I'm playing The Division right now, it's crazy because my character in The Division also has a drone. It's like the same kind of thing of sending them out, so it's kind of just weird coincidence, just the parallels there. But anyways, and then the hologram was cool. Like I liked my character's abilities. I thought those were cool, and the skill trees for everything. Like there's a lot of skill trees. Like there's a lot of depth there. And yeah, I was having fun. I don't know. I guess I like the game. I don't know. I fought the boss who was like this cool kind of like gross big guy that was like a DJ. Like his whole stage was set on like a dance floor and he had these speakers like wall to wall. And the way the fight worked is that you kind of had to fight him in the middle of the dance floor because every now and then one of the walls of speakers will shoot like a blast of music that hurts you if you're near it. So you don't want to you don't want to hug the walls too much because you never know when those speakers are going to blast you. I mean, there's like a warning, like a music cue, but you always want to be moving. And the boss also had a great name called the Sonic Doom. Get it? Sonic Doom? Because music, sound, Doom, bad guy. Pretty good, right? Yeah. Fought him. He had a cool like LED shield, just a groove. He kind of like Krang, or like Krang from Ninja Turtles. If he was like a techno guy, I don't know. Pretty interesting fight. It was fun, and yeah, I walked away from that demo, I guess, slightly more excited or interested, but still not like, oh, I gotta pre-order this. Like, I mean, I wouldn't pre-order it anyway, but like, I gotta get this day one. Like, that's not the feeling I felt. And I don't know if I'm gonna get Borderlands 3 day one. I think it would depend on if my friends all get it, because that's, that game shines best when you're playing with other people. So, but yeah, I'm still not totally. Maybe that demo just made me feel nothing except for like, oh, that was fine. This was Borderlands. That's the thing I can say for sure. Like, it was definitely Borderlands. So. Better or worse, that's what it is. At least that's what it seems to be from what I played. I also played some indie stuff. I played the game I mentioned from before, Remnant from the Ashes, the Gunfire Games game that was at the PC Gamer Show. I played a bit of that, like I said before, and I thought that was pretty fun. I played I played Creature Down in the Well, which is another upcoming indie game where it's like this dungeon crawler, but it had this surprising mechanic that I didn't know about where you're kind of the whole focus of exploration is that you're hitting these balls and trying to ricochet them off of certain objects to acquire or to accumulate points used to open doors. And like all the puzzles I saw were based around that. We're like, okay, now you're hitting multiple balls and trying to have them hit these points, and now you're hitting a bunch of balls, and now you have a charge shot. And I don't know if that's the entire game or if it was just that dungeon, but it seemed pretty fun. It has a really cool look. You should look it up. Again, Creature Down in the Well. But yeah, I thought that was pretty cool. I watched some Battletoads being played. They had that Forza game there with the Lego update going. They had the accessibility controller, which they had last year too. I did not see Ori, and I don't know if I missed it, but I didn't see Ori, which I thought was interesting because Ori was playable last year. Yeah, all in all, Microsoft's booth was a nice spot, and I watched people play Doom and Gears, and that looked fun. Let's see, another weird thing that happened to me that was also a really cool thing was I probably should have mentioned this over it when I was talking about IndieCade. So yeah, I don't prepare for this show, at least not totally, guys. I just kind of get on the microphone and just kind of stream of consciousness, just talk, if that wasn't clear already. But to head back to IndieCade for a bit, I played a game called Infinite Children, which is a Steam game. And the premise of the game, from what I remember, is that you are trying to extend the lifespan of a child who has a very short life. And the way you do that is that, so the game itself gets longer the more achievements that people earn for it. So it's kind of like almost like a community game in that when the developer was telling me when the game first, like, not launched, but I think it was like an early access, I want to say, or maybe it did launch, but basically in its early state, but playable, the game was 7 minutes long. So real quick. So you get in, you play it, and you get out. And the game itself, it's hard to explain, but it's like a narrative adventure game, and that's putting it very mildly, because it's really trippy and weird. It's got all this crazy imagery. It's like a fever dream. Like, I honestly can't do it justice explaining it. Just Google Infinite Children and look at a trailer, and you'll see what I'm talking about. There's like pterodactyls and robes. Like, it's really weird. But yeah, it was 7 minutes long when it launched, and then as more people played it and unlocked achievements, the game got longer. So now it was 10 minutes, and then it was 30. And I think by the time it came to E3, I think it was at like 35 minutes, maybe 40. I'm not sure. But the goal of the game was that eventually the full game would unlocked once all the achievements had been unlocked, like a certain number of achievements. I want to say it was like 20,000 achievements had to have been earned from everyone playing, I think. I'm not sure. But that's basically what it was. And so when I got there for my appointment to try it, the developer is telling me all these things. And then he mentions that, hey, actually, we're about like maybe 7 achievements away from like finally unlocking this game in full. Like, you might be the one to do this. And I'm thinking like, oh, that's cool. Like, I didn't really mind if I was either way. I was just like, I just want to play it, see what it is, get my work done. If I do it, cool. But I'm not focusing on it. And so I play it, and I'm just my brain is doing all sorts of cartwheels trying to process all the things I was seeing and what I was doing. I don't even know what I was doing. I don't even know if I actually liked the game or not. It was an experience. Was it a fun experience? I don't know. I don't know if it wants to be that. It's a weird game. Again, look it up. Infinite Children. But sure enough, I earned the last achievement needed to unlock the full game and put it on sale or more on sale, I guess. I don't know. But I do it. And the developer is like, oh my god, like, you did it. You did the thing. You unlocked the Infinite Children. Like, it's available, like, the full game is now available to the entire world because of you. And I'm like, oh, I did that? Like, oh. And he's like, we got to get a picture. Like, do you mind? Can we get a picture? And I'm like, sure. So me, him, and one of the his developers assistants, I'm not sure, but the three of us took this photo commemorating the landmark moment, which he since tagged me on Twitter, which you might have seen if you follow me on Twitter. Um, but yeah, essentially launched a video game at E3. Like, that's wild and really cool, especially as someone like me who went to game design school and has made a game. To say that I technically helped launch a game, that's a neat little feather in my cap. And again, what a random thing to have happen. Like all the people in the world that could have been the last person to earn the last achievement out of thousands of people that needed to do it, to unlock this weird experimental game. Like it was me. I did this, I guess. It's cool. It's cool and crazy. And just again, this was the E3 of just random cool stuff happening to me. Between this and the Huber thing and the wrestlers, it was like, man, this is a bizarro E3 almost in more ways than one. So like I mentioned before, the West Hall was a relative ghost town a lot of the time. The South Hall was a bit busier because the South Hall is where all the third-party publishers hang out. So like Bethesda, Warner Brothers, Square, Ubisoft, they're all there doing their thing. But even their booths weren't as full as they normally are. Like Ubisoft, from what I saw, the only thing I saw people playing was Ghost Recon, and then the Just Dance thing was going on. Watch Dogs was there, but it wasn't playable to the public. It was just like a booth where you could like take pictures of. It was like a photo op basically, and I think that game was only playable like behind closed doors, from what I understand. But yeah, like Ubisoft's booth pretty empty compared to the previous years. Capcom, from what I saw, was only there to show like Monster Hunter Iceborne, the big expansion that comes out in a couple months. They had like a giant ice dragon that you could take a picture with, but other than that, they just had their usual Capcom store to buy all their memorabilia. But yeah, nothing other than that. Bandai Namco had most of their booth dedicated to Dragon Ball Z Kakarot, which is the upcoming Dragon Ball Z RPG that finally tells us the story of Goku. About time. I've always wanted to see Goku's story told in a video game, and we're finally getting it. You know what I want to say about that game? I'm excited for that game conceptually. Narratively, I'm just kind of like, because it's like, how many times are we gonna retell the story of Dragon Ball Z? It's like, I know that story like the back of my hand. Even if the game's amazing, it's still that same story. But it's like, what do you do? Would anyone be allowed to be like, hey, can I just tell an original story in this universe for the sake of variety, and maybe like either have new characters, or just like, can I just like do what the movies do basically? Like, can I just tell a non-canonical story about Goku? Like, just make up an enemy, make up your own arc basically, and just make a game around that. That would be cool. But I don't know if maybe they are really protective of their IP, which I guess no, I don't blame them. But if you can't do that, I think it would be really cool if you have a game that's going extra hard on Goku. What if instead of Dragon Ball Z, it spanned the entire mythos of Dragon Ball? So like, you start the game with Dragon Ball, like you're Kid Goku, and then you go through all of Dragon Ball, because I don't think a lot of games have done that, like retell the story of Dragon Ball. And then you get to Z where you're older, and then you go through all of that, and then maybe you go to Super, because GT doesn't exist anymore. So just jump into Super and do all that. And like essentially like maybe half the game, or 40% of the game, you're Kid Goku. That'd be cool. At least it'd be something different. It's just, instead of just focusing on Z. But anyways, that was a weird little tangent. So Bandai Namco's booth was all Dragon Ball themed. They had this cool kind of like fake capsule, like I think it was supposed to be a ship that Goku crashed in when he's a baby, and there's like this line leading up to go inside the ship, or at least going near the ship. I don't know if he actually went inside of it. And it has some demo stations with Dragon Ball Z, Dragon Ball Kakarot, and I watched some people play that, and I was like, oh, okay, that looks like a Dragon Ball game. Other than that, I think that they had like Code Vein was there, but Dragon Ball got the big like fancy booth treatment. Bethesda had Wolfenstein and Doom. They had Elder Scrolls Blades on both Switch and phones. and I think that was it. They had a ton of photo ops around. This was the year of photo ops. Like everybody had a photo op this year. Like I feel like more so than other years. Like Ghost Recon had a photo op where you could take pictures with some like muscly soldier guys. I saw them a few times. I did not take a picture with the muscly soldier guys. Or maybe it was Rainbow Six. I don't remember if it was Rainbow Six or Ghost Recon, but it was one of those two that the photo op was. They had the Watch Dogs photo op. Bethesda had one for Commander Keen, the new Commander Keen. They had the insanely catchy Saturday morning theme song from their press conference. Commander Keen! Like, it actually reminded me of, like, a Trey Parker, Matt Stone song. They had, like, pictures with, like, you know, Fallout, Elder Scrolls crap. But other than that, Bethesda's felt deader than normal, too. THQ Nordic had both inside and outside some stuff for like Darksiders Genesis, which I did get to play and I thought was pretty fun. It felt more like Darksiders with a different camera perspective than maybe a straight Diablo like clone, which was fine for me. Like I enjoyed it in that demo. I had fun with it. And I'm looking forward to it. Still haven't played Darksiders 3, but I'm looking forward to it. But they had like that. They had Monster Truck, Steel Jam, which I'll be writing about on community.extralife.com. There we go. Another plug. See how I did that? And then they had Destroy All Humans, the remake. And they went hard on Destroy All Humans and Monster Truck for that matter. Because they had legit monster trucks there. Like in the show floor, they had Gravedigger, which is what every radio ad has always said, Gravedigger. And then out in front of the convention center, they had another THQ Nordic booth that had all the other monster trucks, as well as a giant inflatable crypto head. And that was actually how I found out about the Destroy All Humans remakes. I didn't hear about the remake at all. Like, I think it got dropped just randomly during the, you know, festivities of all the press conferences. So I was like, why is there a crypto head? Like, Destroy Humans? Like, why? And it's like, oh, they announced a remake. Okay. But that area was weird because I think it was supposed to be like an outdoor party because they had a DJ there. And every time I went outside, I heard the DJ playing music and talking and kind of doing like, you know, trying to hype up people like, hey, you know, Destroy All Humans. Yeah. THQ. Woo. Yeah. Let's dance. Woo. But like, at least the times that I went around it, no one was really over there. Like I saw a few people mingling over because they had booths set up, or like demos set up to play games, so you could play Destroy All Humans outside if you really wanted to. And it looked like there were like seating areas, and just like it seemed like they expected more of a crowd than they got. At least, again, maybe it was popping at other points that I didn't notice, but I was outside enough to see that it was never popping for all the pomp that demo had, or that station had, with the poor DJ. Like, it just kind of seems sad in a way of like, hearing the DJ playing music and talking to more or less nobody. Because I think everyone obviously was kind of just ignoring that area of like just looking over and be like, oh, okay, but I gotta get to my appointment, can't stop there or whatever. So yeah, that seemed like it might have been a bit of a bust. Maybe you should have just had the THQ Nordic on that was in the South Hall and just focused on that instead of trying to make an outdoor party out of Destroy All Humans, basically. So that was a bit of a cringy, sad thing to walk by every day. But yeah, I didn't play the remake. I've never even played the original Destroy All Humans. I always kind of wanted to. I've heard good things about it, but it was one of those series that just always slipped by me. But I'll play the remake, I guess, if it's any good. Like I said, Fortnite had a giant piece of real estate in that room, as did Borderlands. Psychonauts 2 was there, but it was not playable to the public. It was like a meeting room basically on the floor. But I saw Tim Schafer hanging out outside a lot. He was there just hanging out with his rapidly white beard. His beard is getting whiter just every day, which, you know, he's getting older, which I don't like that. I don't like Tim Schafer getting older. He's gonna live forever, damn it. I like Tim Schafer. Okay? I told you a story last week, guys, about how Tim Schafer in Psychonauts 2 was my very first interview of any kind, was with that man. And I wanted to go up and say something, but he was busy with a fan. He was like autographing a poster. The fan was very clearly impressed and overwhelmed. And I was like, oh, okay, like I'll catch him later. He was hanging around a lot. I never did, but it was cool to see him there. And also kind of weird because I've never seen Double Fine on the floor, at least in the time that I've been going to E3. Other than that, God, that was mostly it. Like, there was one booth towards the right of the South Hall that was like this weird, like, dance stage. Like, I walked over there just when I was wandering, just kind of looking around, and I saw this. There's like another stage with these, like, beautiful girls just dancing, kind of somewhat scantily clad, not like awful, but like, sexy, and just doing some choreographed dancing that wasn't even great. Like, I was watching it for a while, and I'm not saying I'm like Usher or Michael Jackson or anything, but like, their choreography wasn't really on point. And I kept looking around seeing, like, is this for a game? Like, at first I thought it was like Just Dance. I was like, but this is really far from Ubisoft. I was like, okay, no, it's not. What is this for? And maybe it was for something I missed, but I could not see what it was for. I was like, is this just here? Is this just like a dance stage? Like, I saw like a person from the crowd get on the stage and dance, and maybe it was something that was just for like the public and not like promoting anything in particular other than the art of dancing. So that was a random thing. And it was also just a ton of, like I said before in the West Hall, like just a bunch of random stuff. In the back of the South Hall, they had the rows of just miscellaneous stuff, like different stores. Like, hey, you want to come buy this Dante jacket? We got one here for $1,000. Here you go. Gaming chairs. The damn army was there trying to recruit people, which is a bit gross. Plushies, we've got plushie stores here. You want that like super Japanese plushie? We got it for you, buddy. And then just random, just like niche technologies. Like, hey, we got I don't know, a treadmill that plays video games. You want to run it and play Fortnite? We got that. Try it out. Just like that stuff. That was all back there, and yeah, like when I like I said, like in the West Hall more so, like when you walked in, you could like almost see the back of the room. That's how light it felt in both of those places. And in the South Hall, like I said, it was a little bit busier, but it was mainly front loaded with the crowds because it was like the Final Fantasy VII remake, the long line, the Borderlands long line, and then Fortnite just being Fortnite, so occupied by a fairly big crowd. And then once you got past that front part, again, it was very easy to move around. Like, it just, it was more people than the West Hall, but still, compared to years past, it was like, yeah, just moving around here. And then it was just less to engage with overall. Like I said, everybody just kind of brought less, which again, is not surprising, but man, it was just like, huh, okay, well, I've already seen everything there is to offer here, and not a lot of it is particularly interesting or like something I have to play. Like, nothing here screams must play on the show floor. When it comes out, absolutely. Like, Doom is must play. Do I need to wait in line for it? Nah, not really. If the line's short, like, the only reason I played Darksiders was because there was no line. Like, I kind of caught it towards the end of one of the days. I was like, oh, I just walked up and started playing it. So that's how that happened. But yeah, that was kind of like I said, like that was the ultimate theme of this E3, was just like, come see us next year, basically. Like, we are on standby. This is a buy year. Hey, we got some big stuff. We got Keanu Reeves here. We got release dates for Avengers and Cyberpunk and Final Fantasy. And we got some new stuff coming, but it might be or probably will be next gen at this point. Like Ghostwire Tokyo, Deathloop. I mean, could be cross-gen at the very least. So yeah, it was just it was still fun. I don't want to give the impression that E3 wasn't like fun. It absolutely was. I love going, and I even in a year where I knew going in, I was like, this is probably going to be one of the weaker years. It's like, it's still fun to be around video games and people that love them, just the enthusiasm, how infectious it is, I should say. And also just getting to see my friends and my colleagues though that I really only get to see once a year, usually at E3. It's always fun to hang out with them, grab dinner, BS, catch up, talk about what we're all working on, what we saw, what wrestlers we ran into, all that good stuff. So yeah, I had a great time at E3. There were still some great announcements. Got some work done. Have a lot more work to do, but definitely a light year. And I didn't see if they did or not, but I didn't see the banner that tells you on the last day or whenever it is, like the date for next year's E3. Like every E3 I've gone to, I've always seen the banner or a sign or something promoting like, "Hey, E3 the next year, here's the dates. We already got it set. See you next year." I didn't notice that this year, which I'm assuming there's an E3 next year because why wouldn't there be, especially the year of next gen? Like, some people are kind of doom and gloom saying like, "Oh, will this be the last E3?" And it's like, no, I'm pretty sure they'll get through 2020 because that's a big year. Now, after that, that's a different question. But man, if this E3 was almost like, it felt like a bit of a nail in the coffin a little bit, but I really don't think this is going to be the last one. But yeah, I just thought it was interesting. I mean, I'd have to look up to see if they actually posted those dates or not. So, E3, I'm tired. And so, after E3, I took my tire behind home, which wound up being a more hellish endeavor than it was getting to LA. Because, for one, so my flight was early in the morning, unlike my cozy afternoon flight when I left Florida. And so to make matters worse, I stay up super late. And I chose to because we were all hanging out, like a bunch of us were just all in our hotel room, just some friends. We also met a fellow GI intern, Jill Grot. I don't want to say Groot. If you're listening to this, Jill, I'm sorry if I mispronounced your name, but it was also nice meeting you. Hung out with her. Mr. Kevin Slacky, my favorite tall goth. Great guy. Hung out with him. And then, all of us, the writing team, just chilling out in a hotel room, just talking games and BSing and just being a bunch of cornballs. And, I was like, I should probably go to sleep. At the same time, I'm not going to see these people probably for another year. So I can sleep on the plane. I'm just going to just chill out and just enjoy this. Just enjoy their company, even if I am just completely sleep deprived. Not even just from that day, but just from the week in general. Like, just didn't get enough sleep either day. It's just the nature of the beast. And, by the time I do go to bed, I have to wake up at 5. I think I went to bed at like 3 something. So I get, at best, maybe an hour and a half of sleep before I have to get up, call a Lyft, get to LAX. And that wound up being a disaster just because my Lyft driver was the chattiest Lyft driver I've ever had in my life. Like, oh my God, this woman was an older woman. And bless her heart, nice lady, but I was so tired that I was like looking forward to just getting in the Lyft because it's like a 30-minute drive to LAX. And I was like, I'm just going to lay back here and just shut my eyes. I'm trying not to fall asleep because I don't want to fall asleep in a stranger's car and just in case something happens. So like I still am awake for that, but just let me rest my eyes. And this lady just insisted on talking to me, like just inane small talk. And like, I was like, I know you can see that I'm back here with my eyes closed and you're still talking to me. And she would just say things like, oh, yeah, I was supposed to be done with my Lyft route today, but then I got your call and I had to come back. I just came back from LAX. And I'm like, uh-huh. And like, literally, I'm trying really hard not to be rude, but I'm so tired that I genuinely cannot muster anything other than, uh-huh. Uh-huh. Like, that's it. That's all she's getting from me. It's all I kind of want to give, but it's all I can give either way. And every time I thought she was done, I'm like, okay, I can just relax now. She would bounce back with something like, yeah, my daughter called me and she's asking me to get dinner. I don't know what to eat tonight. Or there was one point where we passed by an area. She's like, this area was developed a lot recently. I used to live here like 10 years ago and like this building wasn't here. Oh yeah. And then like at one point I like kind of fall asleep and we hit like a pothole or something and it bumps and it wakes me up and she goes, "Oh, I'm sorry if I woke you up, honey." And I'm like, So you know I'm asleep. You know I'm back here trying to sleep, and you're still insist on talking to me. Like, what the hell? So that made the a 30-minute drive even longer. And I'm just like, the whole time, I'm like dreading going through LAX, because if you've never gone through LAX before, it can be a very slow airport because it's insanely busy. And it's just like, normal airports aren't fun to go to. Like, if you fly a lot, eventually you get sick of the whole rigmarole of going through security and bag check and all that stuff. And at this point, I just want to go home. I'm super tired. I have no energy. I haven't eaten yet. And I'm dreading having to stand in lines to go through the whole airport process. So like, I was like, let this Lyft ride. Let me just get some rest before I have to, like, because the next time I'm gonna be able to just chill out and rest is not gonna be until the plane, and that's like 2 hours away, if like, at least. So like, before I have to stand in line, let me rest. And this lady's like, no, like, you're not resting. You're gonna stay your ass up with me. I don't know if she was tired too and was talking to me to stay awake. She didn't mention that she hadn't slept in a while either, which, hearing that you're a Lyft driver and possibly sleep deprived isn't the greatest thing you want to hear. Um, but yeah, I get to the airport. I check my bag in. It takes forever because of LAX. And then the lady tells me that, like, hey, your plane is like 2 terminals away because their airport is weird. So I had to walk forever to get to my actual terminal, which was in the international flights area, which was weird, but whatever. And so I get there, I get on the plane eventually. I'm just done, just ready to just be asleep. Like, I'm just gonna sleep this whole flight. And I had a long flight. It was like 4 hours. Like, I had a layover in Atlanta, so it's pretty much like 90% of the trip was gonna be in one shot, which is great. And then something happens where I'm sitting on the plane. We're supposed to fly out at 8:15 in the morning, and I doze off for a while in my seat. We're still in the tarmac, and I wake up after a while, and we're still there. And I'm like, huh? And then I doze off again, and I wake up. I don't know how much time is passing, but we're still there. And I'm thinking, like, feels like it's been a while. Shouldn't we have left by now? And then eventually, we get a little message over the intercom saying that something was wrong, and that they had to tell us to come back. Like, we never left. Like, I guess we were pulling out, and then we had to come back to the parking spot, or whatever you want to call it, to address some sort of issue. So now I got some mild anxiety because, like I've flown countless times. I know how planes work. I've been on too many airplanes, but like, I still have like mild anxiety about like planes going down, even though it's a very rare thing and it's the safest form of travel. I totally know that, and I like flying, but I also have this weird anxiety because, like, flying, more so than any other like mode of transportation, like, you are at the complete mercy of this machine. Like, there's no safety net with flying. Like, I mean, even though you can die, you're more likely to die in a car accident. I feel like, like, if you're in a car accident, you still have ground under you. Like, I can't like fall. And the same with like boats or trains, like, you're still on like solid ground. Like, if the train goes off the rails, like, I can still survive that, maybe. If a boat sinks, I can survive that. I know how to swim, and I might have a lifeboat. But if a plane crashes, I'm fucked. I can't do anything. I can't, like, I don't have a parachute. I don't know how to fly. So, like, if it goes down, I'm at the mercy of the pilot. Maybe the pilot can pull like a Tom Hanks and Sully and land a plane in this miracle like landing in the river or something like that. But that's a very slim chance. So, like, anytime you like hear like, hey, maybe something's wrong with this plane, I'm like, oh god, like. And then, so like, now I have anxiety. Like, even if they fix it, I'm gonna be terrified of like, what if they just rushed it, whatever was wrong, to get it out the airport in time, and like the issue isn't really resolved, and it comes back to bite us, and we crash into a mountain. Like, I don't know. So now, and plus the fact that, again, I was so tired that I was like not thinking straight. Like, it's just not helping. And then eventually we find out that the issue was that somehow they got an inaccurate head count because somebody got on the plane that was not checked in properly. And from what I understand from the captain guy that was explaining this to the people near me, the person in question was part of a group, and at one of the mini checkpoints that you go through with TSA, where they tell you to pull out your ID and your boarding pass, this person checked the group in as kind of a lump sum and missed one of the individuals. So let's just say hypothetically, like it's a group of 3 and they all like maybe hand their boarding passes. And in this case, the TSA, instead of checking 3 boarding passes, he only saw 2 and just assumed that was all of them. And so this third person got on unaccounted for. Not on purpose, like not his fault. It sounded like entirely, from what I understand, the TSA agent's fault. But that's basically what happened. So, and then they catch this as we're about to leave. And in a post 9/11 world, when you have a head count that's inaccurate and you know someone's on that is unaccounted for, that's something that can't, like, you can't sweep that under the rug. So you need to resolve that, like, now. So they have to pull us back in. I'm guessing just do an entire head count just to make sure that this person is supposed to be here and isn't, like, a criminal or just up to no good. And this takes forever. And by forever, I mean we sat in that tarmac for 90 minutes or more, actually. So like I said, my flight was supposed to depart at 8:15. We didn't like take off until like 9:37, I think it was. And I'm like losing my mind because I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, we're still here. Like, this is going to be a 4-hour flight. Yes, I'm looking forward to sleeping, but at the same time, my legs are just kind of restless from like being anxious, and like I'm in this tiny little space with my legs. I'm tall, you know, I'm 6 feet, so I need some leg space, and I'm already going to be cramped on this plane for 4 hours, and now I've had to sit an additional 90 minutes in the seat. Like this is 90 minutes that I could have been in the air closer to home, and now I have a 4.5 hour flight ahead of me. Like, oh my god. Okay, like what the heck? And also, there's the thing of like, I have a layover. I have another plane that I have to get on. So, like, what if we get there too late and my other plane leaves? I don't know. So I'm thinking about this the whole time, you know, fly the 4 hours, land in LA, and now it's panic mode for pretty much everyone on the plane because there's a lot of people there that have connecting flights that they're freaking out about having to get to. And so we're trying to get off the plane. It's also one of those jumbo size planes that have like 3 lanes of seats. Like there's a middle lane. It's like it's like Air Force One basically. And then I'm like trying to get my bag or my boarding pass checks. I'm trying to see where my gate is, and the guy sees it and he's like assuring me that I can make my plane. He's like, "Oh yeah, like, you know, it's gonna be close, but I think you'll make it." So I'm like, "Okay." And like, to define tight, like on my boarding pass, it says that the boarding process for my plane would begin at 4:05, and we landed at 4:20, and my flight departs at 4:45. So now I'm like, oh my god, like I'm like freaking out. I'm like, oh my god, I got to get out of this plane. And so of course it takes forever to get off the plane because it's huge, and also I'm towards the back. And I get out, and then Atlanta Airport works against me because if you've ever been to Atlanta or if you've never been to Atlanta Airport, it is a huge airport. Like, it's gigantic, and to the point where like everything is connected by a train. Like all the terminals you take by train. You could walk to everything, but it would take like forever. So they have this tram system, and it goes from terminals A to terminals F. And I land in terminal E, and my next flight is in terminal A. So that's basically a train ride across nearly the entire airport. And again, I can't run there because it's too far, but I'm at the mercy of a train. Like I can't do it on my own. I have to wait for the train. So I'm like, oh my god, like hurry up train, hurry up, waiting for the train. Train comes, gets on it, takes its, you know, obviously it takes its time getting there because it has to stop at every terminal to let people on and off. And I'm like, oh my god, I can't believe I have to wait till A to get off. Like I have to go all the way through the airport. And I'm just looking at my phone every few seconds like, oh god, like can I make it? And like telling myself like, I'm gonna make it, I'm gonna make it, I'm gonna make it. I get off the train, and I'm thinking I'm in the clear because my gate is A6. And like most airports, you know, when you go down the corridor with all the gates, and generally when you enter that corridor, it begins with the lowest number and it goes to the highest. So like let's say like just for visualization's sake, that you turn the corner into the hallway. Like, I need gates 1 through 5. And then you turn the corner and you see it starts with gate 1. And you're like, oh, it's right there. And then 5 is at the end. That's what most airports are like, at least most airports that I've been to. And then in this case, Atlanta's like, screw that. We're going to start with the last gates, and then it's in descending order. So gate 1 is way in the back, and then the highest gate is in the front. And in this case, like I said, my gate was A6 and it started with A20. So I have like a mile basically. Like it's super long to get to my gate. And it's already like 440 something. And I'm like, oh my God, are you kidding? I have to run now. And so I'm carrying my carry-on bag, which is relatively heavy because it's got my laptop and stuff. Because I'm not checking my laptop in. I've made that mistake before. And I am trying my best to run, but I just can't. Like, I just don't have the energy. Like, I physically could not do it. It felt like I kept trying to will myself, like, run, like, sprint, and I just couldn't. Combined with, like, just the bag and my legs being tired and just being sleep deprived and hungry and then panicking and almost. Like, the most I can muster is kind of a jog. And even that's taking a lot to get to me, but I jogged the like 500 miles, or that's what it felt like to get to A6. And of course, I missed my flight. Like, no one's in the front. The plane is still there, but the like little hallway thing is disconnected, and there's no one around to like even talk to about like, I can't even try to maybe convince them to reconnect the corridor to let me on the plane. So I just kind of accept my fate and I just turn around and go to the next like gate that has a Delta person there, and I'm like, hey, I just missed that plane, like point to the plane behind me, and I'm like, what do I have to do? Like, let's get this figured out as soon as possible. Like, where do I go to talk to? And the person goes, oh, you're gonna want to go to the help desk. It's at A18. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Like A18, like literally back where I started. So now I have to run back up the hallway that took forever to get through to get to the gate. So I'm like, okay. And now I'm like speed walking because I'm tired, but then I can't walk. It's like, I need to get there ASAP. 'Cause what if a plane is coming super soon? I don't want to miss it. But now I'm worried because I'm like, I don't know when the next plane is to get to Florida. Like, what if it's not till later this night and I'm stuck in this airport? What if it's not till tomorrow and I'm stuck in this city for a night? So like, oh my God, like please, like just please work out somehow. So I make the long trek back to A18, see the customer service desk, wait in line, check in, and then thankfully, the next they have a flight for West Palm Beach for like another hour, like an hour and a half later. So it really didn't have to wait that long. So I was like, oh, thank you, like thank God. And also thank God I bought travel insurance because again, travel insurance, you should always get it. It's the first time I've ever had to use it in terms of like having flights delayed or canceled or whatever it is. Weird stuff happening basically. So I was like, okay. So I go to the food court, I get a meal, eat it. I was like, well, I got time to kind of sit down and enjoy myself and kind of catch my breath. And then eventually I get on that plane and fly home. Very relieved that this worked out better than I thought it would, but my God, I was just done. So that's how my E3 ended. It started out very smooth in terms of getting there, and then just completely went to shambles getting out. But again, a really fun show. Very weird show, some really cool random stuff happening. Even if it was dead, it's still great to be in LA. And I want to thank you all for listening to me ramble on about E3 for damn near 2 hours or whatever it is right now. I greatly appreciate it, and I hope it was entertaining. I hope you didn't have to use that coffee to stay awake, the one I told you to get earlier. But I've seized enough of your attention. Let's bring it home. So if you want to follow me on social media, you can follow me at Marcus Stewart on Twitter at Marcus Stewart 7. That's the number 7. And be sure to like, share, and subscribe this show, which you can find on YouTube at Marcus Makes Media. You can also find us on SoundCloud at Marcus Makes Media, as well as iTunes at Marcus Writes About Games. Be sure to follow me on my personal WordPress, marcuswritesaboutgames.wordpress.com, where I kind of archive all of my written work as well as podcast episodes. You can also find me on Screen Rant, writing news and reviews over there. I recently published a review of Assassin's Creed 3 Remastered on Switch. Spoiler alert, it's not a good port, and you can go there and read why it is not a good port of that game. And of course, be sure to check out all of our E3 2019 coverage that's already up and will come at community.extralife.org. I believe Jack posted our daily recap podcast that we were recording At the end of each day, it was us in a hotel room sitting around with one mic, a cheap $25 mic that we kind of bought as a last minute because the original mic we were supposed to bring was not brought. Someone forgot, someone done goofed. But it's us giving our thoughts in real time. So if you want to listen to our thoughts as a group, as well as kind of our immediate reactions to things, be sure to check out those podcasts over again, community.extralife.org. And one more time, keep an eye out on that website in the coming week for all of my interviews, previews, hands-on impressions. All of that will be coming. Final Fantasy VII should be going up soon. I've got Sniper Elite VR. I've got an interview with the creator of a game called Freedom Finger, which was made by the creator of the old Nickelodeon shows Sanjay and Craig, and is also an Emmy-nominated creator. This is his, I interviewed him talking about his foray into the game industry, as well as the game that he is making now. It's a really good interview, so look up for that soon, as well as a bunch of other cool pieces, both from myself, as well as Naomi, Jack, and Zach. Once again, last time, I swear, community.extralife.org. And last but certainly not least, if you want to listen to some great Dungeons & Dragons roleplay, I know you like Dungeons & Dragons, you probably play it. If nothing else, it's fun to listen to, especially when you have a bunch of goofballs that don't know what they're doing all the time and argue and fight over the littlest, dumbest crap, but it's hilarious. Be sure to check out 2 Dungeons & Dragons podcasts, our live plays that we do. The first one, of course, We Wanted Adventurers, DM'd by Jack, and also featuring myself. And the other one is Dragon Guard, also DM'd by Jack. And you can find both of those. Hey, guess what? At that Extra Life link that I said was being the last time that I would say it, I won't say it again, but you know it's probably the one, community. Okay, I'm not going to say it, but it's there. And you can also find it on SoundCloud at the Best Games period. So give those a listen. They're a lot of fun, and they were a lot of fun to perform and play. D&D's fun, turns out. And with that, guys, let's wrap up this podcast. It's been a long one. You could probably hear my voice is still not totally back from E3, and also it's actually pretty late here right now. If I stay on any longer, I'm going to be as sleep deprived as I was in that car with the chattiest Lyft driver on the face of this earth. So before I reach that point of insanity, this is Marcus Stewart signing off, and I will see you next week. Thanks for listening.